I am standing in the living room of my new house. Sunlight pouring through the bay windows I picked out myself. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, with enough space for a garden, and a neighborhood so quiet you can hear birds in the morning. This place is mine. Every single payment, every decision, every nail in the wall. I built this life with my own 2 hands, and nobody can take that away from me. But my phone keeps buzzing. Text after text. Calls from numbers I have not heard from in years. My family wants to talk. The same people who disappeared when I needed them most are suddenly very interested in my life. And I know exactly what they want. Before I dive into how my own family turned their backs on me when I had nothing, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe, because this story will show you exactly what happens when you finally stand up for yourself after years of being used. Growing up in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio, I thought I had a normal family. My parents worked regular office jobs. We lived in a modest 2-story house with a front porch, and I had one sibling, my younger sister Stephanie. She was 3 years younger than me, and from the day she was born, she was the golden child. I do not mean that in a bitter way. It was just the truth. Stephanie got the bigger bedroom, the nicer clothes, the first pick at everything. My parents said it was because she was younger, more delicate. I was the responsible one, the one who could handle things. When I turned 15, I got my first job at a local hardware store stocking shelves after school. My parents praised me for being mature for helping out. What they really meant was that they expected me to contribute. By 16, I was handing over half my paycheck to help with bills. My dad had been laid off for a few months and money was tight. I did not mind at first. I thought that was what family did. You help each other, you sacrifice. My mom would hug me and say I was her rock. My dad would pat my shoulder and call me a good son. But nobody ever asked me what I wanted. Nobody asked if I was okay. Stephanie never had to work. She focused on school, on her art projects, on her friends. I would come home exhausted from a double shift at the hardware store and the pizza place I picked up on weekends, and she would be in the living room watching movies surrounded by snacks I helped pay for. When I asked why she did not have to contribute, my parents always said the same thing. She is younger. She needs to focus on her future. You are the big brother. This is your role. So I accepted it. I thought maybe they were right. Maybe this was just what being the older sibling meant. Then Stephanie got accepted into a university 3 hours away. It was a good school, expensive, but she had her heart set on it. I remember the night my parents called a family meeting. I was 20 years old, working full-time at the hardware store and taking night classes at the community college when I could afford it. I had been saving for 2 years, hoping to enroll full-time the next semester. I wanted to study business, maybe open my own store one day. It was not a flashy dream, but it was mine. My parents sat us all down at the kitchen table. My mom had her hands folded like she was about to deliver bad news. My dad cleared his throat twice before speaking. They told me that Stephanie's tuition was more than they expected. Room and board books fees. It added up fast. They needed help. They needed me to postpone my plans for a little while. Just until Stephanie graduated. 4 years. They said it so casually, like they were asking me to lend them a cup of sugar. They promised that once Stephanie finished, they would help me. They would support my education. It was only fair, they said. She has more potential, my mom said quietly, looking down at the table. She can make more money in the long run with her degree. You are doing fine with your job. You can wait. I sat there feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. Stephanie did not even look at me. She just smiled and said, "Thanks, big brother," then got up and went to her room. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table, but I did not. I nodded. I said, "Okay," because that is what I always did. I said, "Okay." For the next 4 years, I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I sent money home every single month. I lived in a cramped studio apartment with a leaking faucet and a heater that barely worked. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches because that was all I could afford after paying my bills and sending money to my family. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself that when Stephanie graduated, it would be my turn. My parents would keep their promise. But every time I visited home, something felt wrong. They would thank me for the money, sure. My mom would make my favorite dinner, and my dad would ask about work. But they never asked how I was really doing. They never asked about my dreams, my plans, my life. Every conversation somehow circled back to Stephanie. She is doing so well in her classes. She joined a sorority. She is thinking about studying abroad next semester. I would sit there at the dinner table, invisible. I started visiting less. The distance between us grew, but I convinced myself it was just because I was busy. Stephanie graduated on a sunny Saturday in May. I took the day off work and drove 3 hours to watch her walk across that stage. I clapped. I smiled for photos. I hugged her and told her I was proud. And I was in a way. She had done it. But inside I was thinking, finally, it is my turn. I waited a week before I brought it up. I called my parents and asked if we could talk about me going back to school. There was a long pause on the other end. My dad coughed. My mom sighed. They said it was not a good time. Stephanie had moved back home and was looking for a job. The economy was tough. They needed to focus on helping her get started. Maybe next year, they said. Maybe when things settle down. I felt something crack inside me. I asked them point blank about their promise. My mom got defensive. She said I was being unfair, that I was putting pressure on them when they were already stressed. My dad said I should be grateful for the job I had, that not everyone needs a degree to be successful. But then my sister chimed in from the background. "Hey," she said, "I need to buy a new laptop for job applications. Can you lend me $500? $500. After 4 years of sending them almost every dollar I had. After sacrificing my education, my future, my time. She wanted $500 like it was nothing, and my parents just looked at me expectant, waiting for me to say yes like I always did. But this time, I said no. I said no, and the room went silent. I could hear my mother gasp through the phone. Stephanie called me selfish. My dad said he was disappointed in me. They said I had changed, that I was not the son they raised. I told them I would call them later and hung up. The next few weeks were brutal. My phone blew up with messages. My mom sent long texts about how hurt she was, how family is supposed to help each other. My dad called and said I owed them an apology. Stephanie posted vague messages on social media about ungrateful people and fake family members. I knew she was talking about me. My aunts and uncles started reaching out saying they heard I was refusing to help my sister. I tried to explain, but nobody wanted to hear it. They had already decided I was the villain. Then the invitations stopped. There was a family barbecue that summer. I was not invited. My mom's birthday dinner. Not invited. Thanksgiving rolled around and I called to ask what time I should come over. My dad said it might be better if I sat this one out, that things were still tense. I spent Thanksgiving alone in my apartment eating Chinese takeout and watching football. That was when I realized the truth. They did not love me. They loved what I could do for them. The second I stopped being useful, I stopped mattering. I tried one last time to fix things. I sent my mom flowers for her birthday with a card that said I was sorry and that I loved her. She never called to thank me. I texted Stephanie asking if we could talk. She left me on read. My dad sent me a single message that said, "If you want to be part of this family, you know what you need to do." The message was clear. Apologize. Give them money. Fall back in line. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I blocked all of them. It hurt more than I can describe. I felt like I was mourning people who were still alive. But I also felt something else. Relief. For the first time in my life, I did not have to worry about making them happy. I did not have to send money I could not afford. I did not have to apologize for wanting my own life. I was free. And I decided to use that freedom to build something for myself. I threw myself into work. I was still at the hardware store, but I started taking every training opportunity they offered. I learned about inventory management, customer service sales. Then I heard about a real estate licensing course. A coworker mentioned it in passing, said his cousin made decent money flipping houses. I looked into it. The course was expensive, but I had been saving the money I used to send home. I signed up. Real estate became my escape. I studied every night after work. I passed the licensing exam on my first try. I got a job as an assistant to a broker in Denver. The pay was not great at first, but I learned fast. I watched how deals were made, how properties were valued, how to negotiate. I worked weekends showing houses, evenings doing paperwork. I did not have a social life. I did not have a family. But I had a goal. I was going to buy my own house. Not for anyone else, just for me. 5 years passed. 5 years of silence from my family. Not a single call. Not a text. Not a birthday message. At first, I checked my phone constantly hoping someone would reach out. Eventually, I stopped checking. I made new friends. I joined a gym. I adopted a routine. I became someone new, someone who did not wait for permission to live his life. And slowly, I started to succeed. My commissions grew. I closed bigger deals. I saved every dollar I could. And then one day, I found it. The house. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a backyard with mature trees, and a front porch with enough space for a bench swing. It was in a quiet neighborhood outside Denver, the kind of place where kids rode bikes in the street and neighbors waved at each other. The kind of place I used to dream about as a kid. I made an offer. It was accepted. The day I signed the closing papers, my hand shook. Not from fear, but from disbelief. I owned a home. Me. Andrew. The kid who ate ramen for 4 years straight. The guy whose family threw him away. I walked through the empty rooms and cried. Not sad tears. Happy ones. Proud ones. I took a photo standing on the front porch, the keys in my hand, the biggest smile on my face. I posted it online with a simple caption. New chapter. I did not expect anyone to see it. I definitely did not expect what happened next. A week after I posted the photo, my phone buzzed with a notification. A message from Stephanie. Wow, nice house. Congrats. I stared at it for a solid minute. She had not spoken to me in 5 years, and now she was congratulating me. I did not respond right away. Then my mom called. I almost did not pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was sugary sweet. Oh, honey, I saw your post. I am so proud of you. Your dad and I have been thinking about you so much. We miss you. It felt fake, rehearsed. But a part of me, the part that still remembered being a kid who just wanted his parents to love him, wanted to believe it was real. My dad texted next. Son, we should catch up. How about you come over for dinner this weekend? We would love to see you. I hesitated. I knew I should not go. But I thought maybe they changed. Maybe 5 years was enough time for them to realize what they did. Maybe this was a real chance to fix things. So I said yes. The dinner was that Saturday. I drove the 3 hours back to Ohio, my stomach in knots the whole way. When I pulled up to the house, it looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was chipping. The lawn needed mowing. I knocked, and my mom opened the door. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. My dad shook my hand and clapped me on the back. Stephanie was in the living room, and she gave me a quick wave. Everything felt normal. Too normal. We sat down to eat, and the questions started. They wanted to know everything about the house. How many bedrooms? How big is the yard? How much did it cost? I answered cautiously, trying to keep things vague. My mom kept saying how happy she was for me. My dad kept nodding and smiling. Stephanie chimed in with comments about how she always knew I would do well. It was bizarre. Like the last 5 years never happened. Like they never cut me out. Never ignored my calls. Never made me feel like garbage. But I played along. I wanted to believe this was real. Then dessert came. My mom brought out apple pie, my favorite. She cut slices for everyone, and we sat there eating in what felt like forced contentment. That is when my dad cleared his throat. So, son, he started, his voice taking on a serious tone. Your mom and I have been talking. Things have been tough for us lately. The house needs a lot of work. The roof leaks. The furnace is acting up. It is getting expensive. My mom jumped in, and Stephanie has been looking for work, but the job market is so hard right now. She has been staying with us, but the house is so cramped. We are all on top of each other. I felt my chest tighten. I knew where this was going. Stephanie set down her fork and looked at me. You have 3 bedrooms, right? She said it like it was the most casual thing in the world. That is a lot of space for one person. My dad nodded. We were thinking, since we are family, maybe it would make sense for us to move in with you. Just temporarily. Until we get back on our feet. My mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. We could all be together again. Would not that be nice? I sat there frozen. The room felt like it was closing in. They were not apologizing. They were not acknowledging anything. They were just asking for more, demanding more. After 5 years of silence, after everything they put me through, I pulled my hand back slowly. I looked at each of them. My mom with her hopeful eyes, my dad with his expectant expression, Stephanie with her entitled smirk. And something inside me snapped. No, I said. My voice was steady. That is not going to happen. The room went silent. My mom blinked like she did not understand. What do you mean? I mean no. That house is mine. I bought it. I earned it. You did not help. You were not there. You do not get to show up now and ask me to take care of you. Stephanie scoffed. Are you serious right now? We are family. Family helps each other. I almost laughed. Family helps each other. Where were you when I needed help, when I was working 3 jobs and living off scraps so you could go to college? When I asked for support, and you cut me off. My dad stood up, his face red. We raised you. We fed you. We put a roof over your head. You owe us. I stood up too. I do not owe you anything. I gave you 4 years of my life. I gave you my money, my time, my future. And the second I said no to one thing, you threw me away. You did not call, you did not text, you did not care if I was alive or dead. Now I have something you want, and suddenly I am family again. That is not love. That is manipulation. My mom started crying. How can you say that? After everything we have done for you, I shook my head. You did not do anything for me. You did things for yourselves, and I am done being your solution. This house represents my independence. It represents everything I built without you. If you want a relationship with me, it needs to be built on respect, not on what I can provide. I grabbed my jacket and walked out. My phone started buzzing before I even made it to my car. Call after call. Text after text. I blocked every number. Over the next few days, the messages got worse. They reached out through other relatives. My aunt called and said I was being cruel. My uncle sent a long email about the importance of family. Stephanie posted on social media about ungrateful people who forget where they came from. My mom sent a message through a neighbor saying I was breaking her heart. But I did not respond. I did not explain. I did not defend myself. I just kept moving forward. The first few weeks after that dinner were hard. I would wake up in the middle of the night feeling guilty. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have helped them. Maybe I was the bad guy. I would walk through my house and feel this strange emptiness. I had everything I wanted, but I felt alone. The doorbell would ring and my heart would race thinking it was them. But it never was. It was just neighbors welcoming me to the area delivery drivers' salespeople. Normal things, but I was not used to normal. I started getting messages from people I barely knew. Distant cousins, old family friends. People who had not spoken to me in years suddenly had opinions about my choices. One message said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." Another said, "Family is forever, you cannot just turn your back." I did not argue. I did not explain. I just deleted the messages and kept going. But the guilt lingered. I wondered if I made a mistake, if I was being selfish, if I should have just let them move in to keep the peace. Then one night I was sitting on my porch with a beer, watching the sun set over the trees in my backyard. My neighbor, an older man named Harold, walked over. He had kind eyes and a calm demeanor. He asked if I was settling in okay. I said I was. He sat down next to me without asking, which normally would have annoyed me, but something about him felt safe. He told me he and his wife Linda had lived on this street for 30 years. They had seen a lot of people come and go. Some stayed, some left. He said the ones who stayed were the ones who knew their own worth. I did not say anything, but he kept talking. He told me about his son who used to call only when he needed money. Harold gave it to him every time, for years, until one day Harold said no. His son did not speak to him for 2 years. Harold said those were the hardest 2 years of his life. But then his son came back not asking for money, but asking for a relationship. And now they talk every week. Harold looked at me and said, "Setting boundaries does not make you a bad person. It makes you healthy. And the people who really love you will respect that." I felt something shift in my chest, like a weight I did not know I was carrying started to lift. Over the next few months, I focused on building a life I actually wanted. I adopted a dog from the local shelter, a scruffy mixed breed named Max. He had been abandoned by his previous owners, left tied to a fence. The shelter said he was anxious and did not trust people easily. I understood that. We were a good match. Max followed me everywhere, slept at the foot of my bed, and greeted me every day like I was the best thing that ever happened to him. He did not care about my past or my family drama. He just cared that I showed up. I joined a running club that met on Saturday mornings. At first, I went just to get out of the house, but I started making friends. Real friends. People who did not want anything from me except my company. There was a guy named Gary from work who invited me to watch football at his place. A woman named Brianna, who lived 2 streets over, started inviting me to neighborhood barbecues. Slowly, I built a community. Not a family in the traditional sense, but something better. People who chose to be in my life because they wanted to, not because they had to. Harold and Linda became like surrogate parents. Linda would bring over casseroles and pies, saying she made too much and did not want it to go to waste. Harold would come over to help me fix things around the house, teaching me how to install shelves and patch drywall. They never asked about my family. They never pried. They just showed up. And that meant more to me than they will ever know. About a year after I bought the house, I got an email from my cousin Julia. She was the only one in my family who never judged me. She said she understood why I did what I did. She told me that my parents had sold their house and moved into a smaller apartment. Stephanie finally got a job, but was still living with them. Things were tight, but they were managing. Julia said they did not talk about me much anymore. At first, that stung, but then I realized it was a relief. They had moved on, and so had I. I did not feel angry anymore. I did not feel bitter. I just felt neutral. I hoped they were okay. I hoped they figured things out. But I also knew that I was not responsible for their happiness. I had spent so many years thinking I was. Thinking that if I just gave a little more, sacrificed a little more, they would finally see me. But they never did. And they probably never would. And that was okay, because I finally saw myself. One spring morning, I was in the backyard planting tomatoes. Max was running around chasing squirrels. Harold waved at me from his porch. The sun was warm on my face, and I felt this deep sense of peace. Not happiness exactly, but contentment. I had built this. I had created a life that was mine. A life where I was not waiting for approval or permission. A life where I mattered not because of what I could give, but because of who I was. I thought about my family sometimes. I wondered if they ever regretted what they did. If they ever looked back and realized how much they took from me. Maybe they did. Maybe they did not. But I was not waiting for an apology anymore. I was not waiting for them to change. I was just living, and that was enough. I learned something important through all of this. Giving until you are empty does not make you noble. It makes you a doormat. Real love does not demand. It does not guilt trip. It does not show up only when it is convenient. Real love respects boundaries. It celebrates your wins without asking what is in it for them. It stays even when you have nothing to offer. And if someone cannot give you that, they do not deserve a place in your life, no matter who they are. Setting boundaries saved my life. It gave me the space to become the person I was always meant to be. It gave me peace I never knew I needed. And it taught me that I am enough, just as I am, without sacrificing, without shrinking, without giving pieces of myself away until there is nothing left. I am enough. I do not know if my family will ever understand what they did. Maybe they will. Maybe they will not. But I am no longer waiting for their approval or their apology. This house is not just walls and a roof. It is proof that I am enough all by myself. and that is the greatest gift I have ever given myself. I walked back inside Max, trailing behind me. The house smelled like fresh coffee. The sun poured through the windows I picked out. The furniture I chose sat exactly where I wanted it. Every corner of this place reflected who I was and who someone else needed me to be. I poured a cup of coffee and sat down at the kitchen table. My phone sat silent next to me. No demands, no guilt trips, just quiet. And for the first time in my life, that quiet felt like home. So, here is what I want to know from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family, even when it felt impossible? Have you ever walked away from people you loved because staying was destroying you? Drop a comment below and share your story. You are not alone in this. Hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe to the channel because I share real stories about real struggles, and I want you to be part of this community. And please share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who is struggling to put themselves first. Someone who needs permission to say no. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you find your peace whatever that looks like. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.